You wired me awake and hit me with a hand of broken nails. You tied my lead and pulled my chain to watch my blood begin to boil. But I'm gonna break. I'm gonna break it.
Hello everyone, Punchnuts Gaming here, and today we have the entire slideshow for Arkane Austin's Prey revealed to us. Previously we only had the content that was written in the slideshow, but now we have the entire slideshow viewed to the public. Sadly no pictures or concept art of the new game are in here, but there are some pictures from System Shock and the original Prey. If you guys don't know what slideshow I am talking about, a couple of years ago it was rumored that Arkane Austin was working on the new Prey, and this document was leaked but locked to some people trying to get in. A user posted what was written in the slideshow, and now we know he wasn't lying. But a question still stands of whether or not this slideshow is legit. This I cannot answer at this moment, but maybe in the future. Check out my other videos on the next Prey game if you haven't caught up already. Other than that, let's get started. So on the first slide we have the title of the game Arkane Austin is creating, Prey 2. To be honest, I don't think this is what the next Prey game will be called, and it is most likely going to be a reboot for the franchise. This I believe is simply a typo or a slideshow that was created before they had the idea of what they wanted to call the next game. There is also a text written on the slide that says Project Danielle. This is obviously a codename, as also said on the slide, and is used usually to refer to a game in secrecy, so this is most definitely not going to be the actual name for the game. Moving on to the next slide, we have the codename again at the top left, and we also have a box in the center with the genre that Arkane Austin is trying to aim for and what platforms they plan on releasing the game. They say that the point of view will be in first person, the game will be immersive, and they plan on making the genre a mix of sim action and RPG. Now for the platforms they plan on releasing the game on, we have the Orbis, which is the PlayStation 4, the Durango, Xbox One, and the PC. You can tell the slideshow was made a while ago because this was before we knew what the next generation systems were going to be called. On to the next slide, we have notes on the top left that tell us that they want to make the game a spiritual successor to System Shock 2, which means they want to take ideas from the game and put it into their own, which also means it won't have anything to do with the System Shock series. They want the game to be the king of sim RPGs. They want people to get excited for the game when it is officially announced, thus they said one of the most anticipated sequels, and they give us their first plot detail where you have to escape a space station when things go bad. Now that they said one of the most anticipated sequels, it makes me think now if this game will turn out to be a reboot after all. The picture on the right of this slide is from System Shock 2 if you didn't notice the title or remember the image. On the next slide they have story on the top left of the slide and don't have any story details to give us at the moment. I did manage to get some plot details from a user in one of my other videos if you wanted to check that out. As for the image in the background, it is just more System Shock. There isn't much more. On to the next slide, we have some key highlights, which is listed at the top left. They want the game to be a first-person shooter plus RPG hybrid, which is interesting because they didn't mention the game to be a shooter as well on their previous slide. For all we know, it could be a huge RPG hybrid spanning onto many other genres not touched on this slideshow. They want the game to have deep systems that encourage player creativity so they can become invested with scavenging, exploration, or whatever the developers want the player to have fun with. They plan on making the single-player campaign about 10 to 20 hours long each playthrough. Hopefully the game will have a ton of replayability. Multiplayer would be an interesting option as there was online play in the original Prey. They also say the game will be highly replayable because there is built-in variability with the design and support for many playstyles such as random pickups, objectives, gating setups, etc. This is very interesting stuff and I hope they touch on this heavily. On the next slide we have System Shock 2 references to help the main game develop. It is likely that none of this will be in the game unless the developers make their own version of one of these mechanics. Here on the next slide you can see their own version of mechanics they plan on releasing in the game. The previous slide was a base layer for these mechanics listed. They say they want to have their own flavor for all of the above, which I believe they are saying that all the mechanics on the previous slide will be in the game somehow. They want to have real missions where actions affect the plot, which would add to the replayability. They want the world they're going to create visually stimulating and has variety, and they want more systems in every type listed like powers, player movement, gadgets, physics, and monsters. They also have AI, plant growth, and ecology, which are all under simulation. As for the image on the left, I don't know where it's from, but you can definitely see plants, which is also listed on the right. On the next slide they say that they don't know which feature out of the ones they listed listed on the previous slide will stand out, meaning they are still working on the mechanics, and until they get everything worked out, they won't know what will be their big selling point. So on the next slide they get into combat. They plan on having melee, ranged, and psionic powers into the game, which is a lot like how System Shock 2 was. For melee we have the heavy wrench, hopefully returning from the original Prey, a fire axe, and a detail telling us that guns are limited in ammo, which should go under ranged but aren't. For ranged we have guns and lasers and guided blades that are crafted by the player. I wonder how these blades will work out and how useful they can be in combat. For psionic powers we have the ability to pacify enemies, pull objects with a physics system, and to invert gravity in an area, which is interesting because this mechanic was also in the original Prey. On the next slide they get into the unique aliens we will see in the game and the powers they will have. Each one of these notes is probably one for different aliens. We have an alien that is a liquid that self-replicates itself every time they feed. You will have to kill them fast or you will face a swarm of them. There's an alien group that might be called mimics that shapeshift into other objects, monsters, or the player, which should be interesting. It also makes me think if the player can make his or her own character, or if it's a model the developers created. There are also acid-breathing aliens that corrode the environment when they die, spit, or start bleeding. They also say these monsters can open doors when killed properly. There are also deranged security and repair bots that are native to the ship. Will there be any other monsters we will face in the game besides robots and aliens? We will just have to wait and see. On the left we see an image of something I have no idea on. The bottom image might be this self-replicating liquid alien, but I cannot say. Now on the next slide we get into the survival aspect. The survival mechanics in the game are that food is rare, you can be poisoned, you need to sleep, you might be able to fall sick, they might not have made up their minds yet, and radiation has leaked out in some areas which may be the cause of being poisoned or falling sick. Now we get into crafting and scavenging, where you can apparently extract components from monsters which are used for whatever the developers come up with. You can make armor from the skin of a tough species, probably an alien or a robot. You can make weapons, you can grow your own food because they said food is scarce, and you can cure yourself of poison, which are all very interesting crafting components I will love to see in the game. The image on the left looks like a food chain, maybe for the game. On this next slide we got details on tailoring your own character. You can compose your own playstyle, which they hope to pull off, as a hacker, fighter, stealth, or psionic playstyles. You can update stats, acquire more psionic powers, genetically mutate, which sounds very interesting, and you can acquire properties from other aliens by sampling their DNA. You can also stick to walls, which was also in the first Prey but may not be the same thing. You can camouflage and work on your immunities to become stronger. It sounds like there is going to be a ton to do in this game and I cannot wait to see this game showcased. The image on the left is obviously a male character, but whether or not this has any correlation to the actual game, I cannot say. On the next slide we have more interesting facts about the game, like consequences and your story choices, a lot of variability and replayability, which we can tell from these previous slides, and an out-of-game experience like social, achievements, and what looks like a mobile app. And log sharing, which I have no idea why people would want to share logs they find in the game. On to the next slide, they want this game to be hard because they say it is better for tension, and that they will have modes for Anthony and Harvey, which may be some of the developers, but what those modes are a mystery. Then on the next slide we have this. Monkeys, which is probably referencing the monkeys found in System Shock 2, or unless they really want monkeys to appear in their game. Then on the last slide we have the common question people ask after presenting. Questions, and I ask that to you guys for whoever is still watching after all of this time. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I want you guys to leave any questions you have in the comment section down below. Please subscribe and leave a like for more Prey videos, and I'll see you guys on the next video.